Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt Podcast. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and the other host is Chris. What's up, buddy?
Hello, Zach. Great to see you, my dear friend. Hello, everyone from around the world and the interwebs. We are so glad to be back. And this is great to be here with you to talk about what we love and to be here in general.
That's right. Yeah, we sure do. And thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it very much. We're just a couple of nerdy guys. We love to talk about all things nerdy and geeky, Star Trek, Star Wars, everything in between. If you've been watching or listening to us, you've heard the spiel before, you know. So you can go on Facebook and Instagram, check us out there, follow us for more updates and announcements and celebrity guest announcements and all that fun stuff. And if you're listening to us, there is a video version of this current episode you're listening to on YouTube. So be sure to go check out our YouTube channel. Just search the Random Redshirt Podcast. It'll pop up. We've got, I think, 51 videos on there now, but not all of our videos are on YouTube. If you're watching us, a lot of videos or a lot of episodes are audio only. So you can also find us on your favorite podcast platform. But we are here to talk about Star Trek Enterprise season 3 and 4, finishing out our legacy Star Trek review. As every season, we've looked at a different Star Trek series, legacy series, starting with TOS in the very first season of our podcast, all the way now to season 5 of the podcast. And this is our season 5 finale, Chris.
I can't believe it's our season 5 finale, and I can't believe we have over 50 episodes on the YouTube. That's like incredible.
Yeah, and we're closing in on almost 100 episodes total for our podcast, which is crazy.
It is crazy. And it's gone by really fast, and we've had so much fun.
I'll be honest with you. When we first started this thing, I don't even know if we'd make 5 episodes. You know what I mean? Because we just didn't know, right? We didn't know, what we were doing or how long this would last or if anybody would even listen. And it's continuing to go. And we're having such a blast. So
yeah,
thank you all so much for the support and for watching and listening. It's been awesome. And we look forward to continue to do a ton more episodes down the road.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
But Chris, you wanted to share something that showed up at your house. So please share away.
I did. So I ordered this a while ago. Like I said, I think it was still this year that I ordered it. It showed up last week. I had forgotten about it, and I just opened the package today. Did not, have a chance to open it last week. And as I was thinking about it, I was totally thinking about you, Zach, and I thought, okay, this would be great to share. This would be great to open up. Be great to take a look at.
Was this back ordered or something? And like you pre-ordered something that just took a while to
pre-ordered it.
Okay.
I was gonna say,
what takes so long?
Yeah, and then it shipped shipped in November. So let's take a look. I don't know if maybe you already are aware of it.
I don't know. Maybe I am. I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out here.
Yeah.
For those of you listening, Chris is opening something.
Yeah, sorry. This is great audio.
You want to see it? You want to see it?
Go to the video. Yeah. So this, and I haven't opened yet, but it is the Picard Legacy Collection.
Oh, you know what? It's interesting you say this, Chris. I just saw this the other day on social media, and I never heard about it until then. So I just found out about this not that long ago myself.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, this says this is limited to 11,750 copies.
Interesting. And it's a set of, is it a set of movies and shows? What is it?
Yeah, it is. It is every season of Star Trek Next Generation, every Star Trek The Next Generation film. So it says Star Trek The Next Generation seasons 1 through 7, Star Trek Picard seasons 1 through 3, Star Trek Generation, Star Trek First Contact, Star Trek Nemesis, and Star Trek Insurrection. And then some one-of-a-kind collectibles, The Wisdom of Picard, the Legacy Collection Edition, magnetic Captain Picard badges, 4 custom Chateau Picard drink coasters.
Nice.
A custom deck of Picard playing cards.
Wow. So you got, are they, I'm assuming those are all Blu-ray.
They are all, yes.
I would imagine, right?
I'm assuming they are all Blu-ray.
Yeah. I would assume so as well. If it's brand new being made, it would be Blu-ray. But that's
Blu-ray. Yeah, it does say Blu-ray.
Did you have Star Trek: The Next Generation or any of that stuff on DVD or Blu-ray already, or no?
I did not have Next Generation on Blu-ray.
Oh, no. Interesting. Yeah. So I'm guessing with it being new, it's got to be, well, it's Blu-ray, so it means it would be the remastered version of TNG, which I have the remastered TNG on Blu-ray myself, but it's not in that set. It's the set that came out many moons ago on Blu-ray. But that's awesome then.
Yeah.
It's really awesome.
Yeah, I was really happy to get this. I mean, you know that Picard is my that I love him as a captain.
Yeah.
And I just think this is great. This is great having him. You know, he's um you know, gosh, I mean, we have like heroes in our lives, right? Whether they're our relatives, or people that we know, um, but also like heroes that have been crafted uh, by Star Trek and our great like our great media that we love. These archetypal heroes. So it's just
Yeah.
it's great to have these, and yeah, I'm totally very happy that I got this.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah,
Congratulations. That's great.
yeah, thank you. So, for those of you that 11,750 copies worldwide. So if you're able to get it, then people that are watching get it. Zach, if you want to get it, of course, yeah, should do it.
Yeah. I might
Yeah,
have to look. Well, I might have to look into that and see what's up.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah, yeah. So
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that showed up, and it's funny. You pre-ordered it and then just kind of forgot about it. Is that what happened?
yeah, I pre-ordered it and forgot it. So pre-ordered it, and then just like so many of us, right? So we've got so much that happens in our lives, so much that
Right.
happens at work, and then there's a whole bunch of business travel, and then just so much in our mind, and then it shows up, and then I saw that box, and I was like, huh, what is that? I don't remember. And then I had to go on another business trip, and then my wife was like, what's that box? And then it clicked. I'm like, oh, I know what that is. So
So see, I think we've set an idea here, Chris.
yeah,
If we order something or pre-order something far enough out, by the
yeah,
time it shows up, we might have forgotten about it. It's almost like getting a present to ourselves that we forgot about. You're like, oh,
yeah,
I just got myself a gift that I totally forgot about, and it's a huge surprise.
indeed. Indeed it is. Yeah.
My wife doesn't think that's a good idea, but that's not the point. Not It's not the point. That's awesome though. That's really cool. Now you have, I mean, other than watching it on,
Yeah.
streaming on Paramount Plus, now you have an opportunity to go through and watch the discs on Blu-ray, and that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I'm really so our next episode, I'll get a chance to read this. It says The Wisdom of Picard, the Legacy Collection Edition. So I don't know if that is a text like book or if it is a video itself. So I'll take a look at it and be happy to share that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool. Awesome.
No.
All right, well, let's jump into Star Trek Enterprise um season 3 and 4.
Three and
We looked
four.
at the first two seasons and kind of the show as a whole, talked about the crew and some characters and recurring characters and so forth. But now we're going to season 3 and 4. Unfortunately, as we've talked about before, and if you're watching this, good chance you've seen Enterprise and know kind of the history of it. But these are the last two seasons of Enterprise because it only got 4, which is really terrible. This show, um, when Manny Kodo took kind of the reins as the showrunner in season 4, a lot of people mentioned that season 4 is the best season of Enterprise,
Mm.
and I have a hard time arguing against that. It's really really good, and that was kind of where I feel like season 4 is really where Enterprise had its legs underneath it and was beginning to take off. And I think we've talked about this before, right, Chris? When we looked at the other legacy Star Trek series, maybe not so much TOS, because TOS only had 3 seasons and it was canceled and everything. But Enterprise, DS9, and Voyager, all 3 of those shows really seemed like late season 3 into season 4 was really when they had their feet underneath them and they started to really take off.
Yeah, I agree. Because then you've had a couple of seasons of the actors and the writers working together, kind of understanding the groove where it's going to go, some character development, and then the ability for them to get comfortable with each other. Um, and then you just get some great stories and you get some great interaction with the crew, and it definitely moves forward quickly and at a great pace, and with good intensity and great stories.
Yeah. And the characters have, the characters are established. You have
Mhm.
recurring characters that are established. Relationships are sort of established, and then they're beginning to develop and grow. Character development is continuing, those types of things. So let's look first at season 3. The first couple seasons of Enterprise, right? I don't know about you, Chris, but I thought the first two seasons of Enterprise were really good. You know, you can look at some of the other legacy series and say, well, you know, the first two seasons are kind of so, they're a wash. But I really thought the first two seasons of Enterprise were pretty fantastic.
They were fantastic. And one of the really important things about the first season, even the first season of Enterprise, is it sets up this tone where, like, okay, humanity is going out and into doing exploration of the stars. There's all this ambition of humanity. They are not prepared for what they expect, and you see that. But also they're dealing with this. They're dealing with their relationship with Vulcan, and and in the first season of Enterprise, you realize that, yes, Vulcan is helping them. The Vulcans are helping them, but it's almost like this well, it is this sense of, yeah, there's um there's a condescending attitude from the Vulcans to the humans, and you see they're trying to get through that, right? And you kind of this is you see that very heavily in season one. And I think that's a great thing about Enterprise, because, despite that, you've got all of this great ambition from Earth and humankind to want to go explore. And that's something that is in contrast, because although Vulcans are, I mean, they're great, they're logical, they've got so much technology and advancement, and uh, they've got this great handle on science. Humans have so much ambition, and so there's this great kind of contrast, right? um
Yeah.
yeah, so much ambition to get us in trouble, but still, you need you need ambition to keep moving forward.
Yeah, well, and humans are emotionally driven too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the idea when this idea that humans want to go out and see things for themselves. They don't want to just hear about it from the Vulcans or whatever. They want to go out and experience themselves. That idea of emotion and that feeling of being an explorer or being the first human to go here or go there. All of that. I mean, it's that drive to explore and succeed and do well, and being the first of something is also important to Vulcans. That kind of gets into the idea of ego and those newfangled human emotions they don't care for, even though we know very well from legacy Star Trek that Vulcans, while are for the most part emotionless, there's more than their fair share of incidents where Vulcans have expressed emotion.
Mhm.
And so we see that quite a bit. But yeah, so the first two seasons I thought were very good. I think those first two seasons, and you kind of hit on this, Chris, is really about humans proving themselves to the
Yeah.
Vulcans that, hey, we can do this, right? And we saw this and we talked about this in part one. If you want to go back and watch our part one review of Enterprise, just scroll back into previous episodes. I think it was, I don't know how many episodes ago now in season 5, but it was a little while back. We've done some various other things and interviews and so forth. But go back either on our YouTube channel or on your podcast platform and find it. Enterprise Review Part 1. And in that, we talked about this idea where the Vulcans didn't think humans could do it. There was this push for humans to go. They wanted to go out and do it themselves and prove the Vulcans wrong and prove themselves right. And I love this phrase that you use, Chris. I remember you saying something to the effect of, like, they were ready but not prepared,
Yeah.
which I thought was good. They thought they might have been prepared. They thought they were ready. And they probably were ready, but maybe not fully prepared. And we saw that in a few different episodes, especially in season 1, right? Where they go out, they run into some, major issues, and then it's like, okay, we got to turn around and go back, or maybe we need to go back, and there's a little bit of doubt that begins to creep into their minds during these first couple seasons.
Yeah, it is. And you made me think about this. Like, so the opening credits of Enterprise has this beautiful montage of different explorers on Earth, right? From exploration of the seas to um, the first space exploration, and this just it evokes such memories of history. Like, you've got the exploration for Antarctica and Shackleton, and then of the Apollo series, and all of these kind of great ambitious exploration journeys, and all of them had so many failures like along the way,
Yeah.
just like Enterprise did. But it's just this uh I think it's beautiful because it's just this beautiful trait of like humanity and having the ambition to explore and to seek out the unknown.
Yeah. Before I
Yeah.
forget, we didn't mention this at the beginning, so my fault. But as of the time of this recording, the strike is over,
Ah,
which is
yes.
great. So we're very happy and pleased to hear that. You know, the friends we've made along the way in the Writers Guild, in the Actors Guild. We're very happy that the strike is over. People can get back to work. We're looking forward to having folks on with us that now can talk about their work. And we've got a wonderful lineup of people coming down the pipeline for you. So please stay tuned for that for announcements. Again, you got to follow us on Facebook and Instagram
Yeah.
to get those announcements. So make sure you go do that so that you can be ready and receive those announcements when the time comes. And we will, as soon as we're able to announce each of those, we absolutely will. But first and foremost, we're glad everybody's able to get back to work and do what they love doing so much. So,
Absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
yeah, that being said, I I loved the first two seasons of Enterprise. I thought you could argue the first two seasons of Enterprise are better than the first two seasons of the other Legacy series. That might be somewhat
Mhm,
controversial,
mhm,
but
mhm.
I'm curious though, Chris. You brought up this montage at the beginning
Yeah.
and the theme song of Enterprise, which I think we might have briefly touched on in our part
Yeah.
one review, but you know, this Faith of the Heart song. Um, it's kind of one of those either you love it or you hate it, and I'm
Yeah.
curious what camp you're in on the song. And again, I don't remember if we covered this on part one, but what do you think of the song? Is it because this is the only song in Star Trek where there's words?
Yeah.
You know, every rest is all instrumental. So where are you at on the Enterprise theme song?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I'm in that camp where I really enjoyed it, right? It was a disconcerting at first because it's kind of like you go into it and it feels like this doesn't feel like Star Trek, right?
Right,
This doesn't feel
feels
right.
way off, right?
It feels way off, but I think I loved it because so the other Star Trek legacy shows, well, even now, the other Star Trek shows and legacy shows was I mean these beautiful flybys of the ship or the station with these just incredible beautiful like orchestral music that would like evoke such great emotion. Okay, but Enterprise was like but Enterprise was like this montage kind of music video, right, with Faith of the Heart. And the part that always, okay, I love this part. That's like you've got there's this scene where you see one of the Apollo astronauts and he does this look, he just does this glance. And it's this close up of his face. And every time I see that, I just get chilled because
Mm.
I just love that part. And I get like, wow, to see that Apollo astronaut and all of that the experience, the knowledge, and the courage that not only he had to to have at that point to move forward, but all of us, like as a species of humans, had to bring forward and to move into that moment. So I gotta say I loved it. It was just a great music video for me. Yeah, I'm in that camp. I really like it, but I think you have a different opinion, right? Yeah,
No, I mean, I don't know if I love it, but
yeah.
I'm in the camp of liking it. Yeah, I think it fits. I think it fits the show, right?
Hmm.
Because you have this idea where it's Star Trek, but it's this show is closer to us in the timeline than any of the other Star Trek series. The other Star Trek series are way in the future, right? Hundreds and hundreds of years, and this is 130 to 120 some years ish, without doing public math here and embarrassing myself. You know, it's close enough where you kind of feel like, okay, yeah, I can buy that. I can relate to that. You know, they still talk about things like different states in the United States, like Florida, where Trip is from.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
true.
water polo, which is Archer's favorite sport. He's got a beagle on board. He's got a dog, right? So that's a human animal. There's things that are so relatable for us in today's time period, right? That I think it makes it that much easier to relate. So therefore, you think, okay, well, they're not so far enough in the future where they actually listen to music kind of similar to what we might listen to nowadays, versus in next gen, which is 300 and some years in the future, they're all they listen to is like Mozart and, you know, classical stuff. You don't hear them listening to rock and roll or country music or, you know, what, fill in the blank type of music, right? So it makes it more relatable to me. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I like it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let's start with season 3. So we've gone through the first 2 seasons. We know humanity's getting its feet under itself, getting its legs, getting out and exploring, proving the Vulcans wrong, proving themselves right. When we get into this 3rd season, now in the first 2 seasons, there was definitely conflict, right? The very first episode, we get a Klingon on Earth, right? Humans had not had first contact with Klingons up till that moment. So
Yeah.
they weren't aware of them really. I mean, the Vulcans were, but the Vulcans were aware of a lot of things that humans weren't, that they just didn't share with. We get into this 3rd season, and prior to season 3, we also know there was the first Xindi attack on Earth, right? And in that attack, I believe, is when Trip's sister is killed,
Yeah.
right? Because that weapon cuts right into the Earth and goes right through Florida, I believe. And because of that, I believe she's killed in the attack. Correct me if I'm wrong on
Yeah.
there,
No,
Chris.
I think you're right. Yeah, you're right. She's killed in that attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so season 3 now kind of shifts focus back to the mission that the Enterprise, the NX-01 Enterprise, has to try and prevent another Xindi attack from happening on Earth. You have to think, right? I mean, we're not at the point in human history like we are in TNG and DS9 and Voyager, where Earth has become this paradise where there's no murders, there's no crime. It's just this perfect haven of happiness, which we all know this Earth's far from. Right.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. So the idea that the Earth has had this attack doesn't conflict with that idea. And unlike season 2 and season 1 of Enterprise, season 3 begins to kind of become a little serialized, right? Where we're starting to get some building off of previous episodes, which I think is great, because now you're influxing some of that idea that DS9 brought in, which is this idea of building off episodes, creating kind of a continual story arc into it. And we're also getting more character development from Archer and Trip and T'Pol, and they have some very considerable character development actually in season 3. So with that being said,
Yeah.
Chris,
Mhm.
let's talk about some episodes that stood out to us in season 3, and then we'll move to season 4. So what are some episodes that you can think of and remember? You know, I know you've watched actually Enterprise season 3 and 4 more recent than I have. I'm going to go back through it, but I'm only on season 1. So tell me some episodes that stood out to you in season 3.
Well, you know, I like ethics and I like ethical questions. So there was, when I think about season 3, there was a really good episode directed by LeVar Burton, entitled Similitude. And this is, it's been a while since I've watched it, but this is one where, if I remember correctly, Trip is injured,
Mhm.
and I don't remember what causes the injury, but it is a serious, like, I think uh, life and death injury. But the only way to save him is to, at least what Dr. Phlox comes up with, is to clone a copy of Trip, essentially, so that they can be able to transplant some really important organs. But I mean, from that, you get this, because the clone, eh, uh, essentially becomes like a functioning, like, other version of Trip, right? And I don't remember if he decides to have like a different name, but essentially it's another version of Trip. And I
Yeah.
know that this version of Trip has some really important scenes with T'Pol too, and so
Hmm.
there's some developing character relationship with T'Pol. I want to say that T'Pol and the clone, they kiss and they're intimate in that particular show, but this this episode just has that great ethical question of now you've got of a clone. Now you've got a clone. It's sentient, and in order for the original Trip to survive, uh, this clone has to give up its life essentially for the original Trip to survive. So great one.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you love the ethics episodes for sure.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you think about it, many Star Trek episodes are ethical in nature, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the things that makes Star Trek so great. I would have to say, Chris, we should probably file this particular episode you just mentioned away in the books for a future deep dive.
Yes.
And I say that because we like to dive deep on these types of things, but also this is not exactly the first time this idea has been done before. We've seen similarities in this, different types of episodes, but some similarities, like where you have Thomas Riker and Commander Riker, right? That transporter split. The difference is, I mean, they're not. It's kind of a clone, but there's no ethical decision here of one should live, one should die. They kind of both go their separate ways, and then we see Riker reappear in DS9, or Thomas Riker. But we also get this with Tuvix.
Yeah.
In Voyager,
Tuvix,
right? Now,
yeah.
this is, again, a little bit different, though. They're two characters coming together in a transporter malfunction, I believe is what it was, right?
Yeah.
And makes this whole new, character, whole new sentient being. But this kind of similar story idea of a clone and, what do you do? And this was a good episode. I'm glad you brought this one up. This was good. Yeah. This definitely goes back to the moral dilemma of, if humans were ever cloned. Do you remember the movie Schwarzenegger did a long time ago called The Sixth Day?
Sixth Day.
So human cloning was still not, that was no bueno.
Yeah, no bueno.
Back in the day, right?
Yeah.
But in that movie, they had this thing called repet, where if your pet died, you could go down and have it cloned and bring it back home, and little Billy or little Susie would never know the difference because it'd be the same exact animal. And they also did cloning of other stuff, but they weren't supposed to clone humans, even though it was going on. So that ethical dilemma of cloning. You also have the hilarious take on cloning of Multiplicity with Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton. Yep. One of my absolute favorite comedies. It's absolutely hysterical movie. But this goes kind of into that realm.
Yeah.
Very good episode.
Excellent. Yeah. There were other episodes that come to my mind, and this is it's a little fuzzy on the brain, but one is the crew of the Enterprise. They're using a subspace corridor that the Xindi have, and then they encounter kind of mirrors of themselves, or descendants of themselves far into the future. So they were kind of stuck in this situation, and they aged, and they found descendants of themselves, which was cool because you had this other version of T'Pol, and then you got this kind of insight into this relationship with T'Pol and Trip, at least on that other version of them. So that was a really good one that I enjoyed.
Yeah. You remember what the name of that episode was?
E Squared.
E Squared. Okay. That makes
E2.
sense. E2?
Yeah.
E2. That was an interesting episode. Yeah. I think anytime you see these time paradoxes and stuff, those are always classic Trek episodes.
Yeah, they totally are. I mean, yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No. It just made me think of this other time paradox episode from Star Trek Next Generation, where it was Captain Picard seeing this other version of himself,
in season 2, right? Yeah, I actually just watched that not that long ago. Yeah, it's a great episode.
Oh, cool.
Great episode. Yes. Yeah, I want to say, Chris, that one thing Enterprise had going for it back in the day was that it had all 4 legacy Star Trek series ahead of it to be able to use as templates, right? Yeah. To be able to say, okay, yeah, they've done these concepts and idea episodes, right? They've done the time travel episodes. They've done the mirror universe episodes. They've done these episodes where they're seeing alternate versions of themselves or future versions of themselves. And they can take those concepts, twist them make them their own, or even just straight up copy them if they really wanted to, and make episodes out of them. So I think
Yeah.
that having that kind of that template already set out in front of them, really, I think is both a good thing and a bad thing. A good thing that, like, hey, we have some ideas here we could use in our own timeline now, in this part of the timeline for Enterprise. But it's also a bad thing because it's like, well, if we do that too often, then it looks like we're just rehashing old episodes and remaking them into Enterprise episodes. And now it looks like the writers have no idea what they're doing. So I think there's a good balance here in Enterprise where you're taking concepts and ideas that Star Trek's done before, but making it your own. And then you're taking new stuff and bringing it all together.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, actually, because there's always throughout the Star Trek Legacy shows, can be sure that there's something to do with time, right? You always get this time paradox. And it's kind of always World War II seems to get like mixed up in everything too. There's like World War II stuff in the original Trek. Remember there's World War II stuff in Voyager. Trying to remember if there was World War II things in TNG. I don't have something that's coming right to
Yeah.
mind, but
Well, there's definitely
yeah.
Old West stuff across the board, right? I mean, TNG had a fistful of datas.
Yeah.
TOS had that crazy shit at the OK Corral thing.
Yeah.
Voyager has some I think had some Old West type of stuff ish. I don't remember specifically, but yeah, there's some definite things there. And I think there's even an episode here of Enterprise where in one of the seasons where they come across some planet that humans settled, but it's trapped in the Old West time or something like that. I don't remember the exact specifics of it, which is a common theme for us. We don't remember, we forget. Remember, we're members of Rigel 7, Chris.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Among the Lotus Eaters.
Among the Lotus Eaters. That's right.
Yeah, our remembering. Yeah.
Well, we live in the present.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but because season 3 has a shift focus back to the Xindi and stopping another Xindi weapon from attacking Earth, you have a lot of Xindi episodes, right? A lot of Xindi focus episodes. So I remember one particular one called The Council, where we actually get to meet the Xindi and we note 5 different Xindi races or species that are alive.
You're passionate about the quantity of Xindi species. I know this.
Yeah, well, yeah. I know. I'm also passionate about the types of species that are alive, and there's a 6th one that went extinct, and how many were there, and what ones are not. And I'll go back to that trivia question, Chris. Curses, yeah. I tell you what, I'm not going to get into it. I've done enough soapbox about it. That's okay. That's all right. But yeah, it's a good episode. So we get to see the different reptilian and the primates and, all these different things. And we see the variety of species amongst the Xindi, which makes them incredibly unique, right? To have an alien race that's not just this one type, you have all these different versions is pretty interesting.
Yeah, very, very unique because I don't think there were a lot of Star Trek episodes in the other series such as that, right? If they encounter a planet, usually there's a few, but usually like there's one dominant sentient species like on the planet. There have been some episodes where there's been a couple different sentient species on the planet,
but they're not always related though either, right? Xindi, these are all part of the Xindi, species, and they're like subspecies of Xindi. So I find that very interesting. The way they did that, and they all looked at, because the aquatics are vastly different from the primate ones, and they're vastly different from the reptilians. I mean, it's a very very interesting approach to a new alien species, especially a recurring quote unquote villain. Yeah. Right. That you find throughout a Star Trek series.
Yeah, it was a good idea that they.
Yeah, absolutely. You had an episode called Azadi Prime. This is where Archer is going to like kamikaze a shuttle to help destroy the Xindi weapon. You find that this idea of the captain trying to make the ultimate sacrifice to save not only his crew, but his home world as well. Given the history they have with the Xindi and their attempt to, severely damage Earth, if not try to destroy it. Then you also have an episode called The Xindi, And I believe Chris, in this is this the episode where the Enterprise first enters the Delphonic however you say it, Delphanic expanse, because that becomes a major player in the show too, moving forward.
I think it is, and isn't it that
Delphonic? I don't know how to say it, but
yeah, Delphonic. Wasn't that expanse the one that the Vulcan ship went into, and the Vulcans, when they went into, they went crazy? I think, if I'm thinking about the right thing.
No, that was a different one, I believe.
Okay.
That was the one where I think the crew had to be, that was the one, wasn't that one called the catwalk, where they all had to be huddled in the catwalk to be shielded from the effects of the radiation or something outside, and they were in it for a while. And
Maybe, yeah.
I think that might have been the episode. I think that was season 1, because I remember watching that episode not that long ago. I think it was season 1.
But this Delphonic expanse is the one. Is this the one where there's like different spheres in the expanse, and they're trying to map out?
I think so.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that was kind of cool how it is fuzzy, but it's kind of cool, these spheres that they were trying to understand,
Yeah.
and get, I guess, get control or get kind of understanding of them, so that they could find the Xindi homeworld.
Yeah, I think so.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's another episode too that I found fascinating. An episode called Stratagem.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Archer comes face to face with the guy who designed the Xindi super weapon, Degra, and tries to get him to reveal its location. This is also where I believe Archer is dressed up as an alien, as a Xindi, I believe. I'm curious on your thoughts on this, Chris, because think about this. Okay, so you have this episode where Archer it comes face to face with a guy that creates a weapon that, does such significant damage during its attack on Earth. You wonder too, if you had that same situation here on Earth, whether it was with, a civilian at Hiroshima and Nagasaki who comes face to face with Oppenheimer, inventing the atomic bomb, or whether you have, name anybody in history, any villain in history that does something, some atrocity, and you have somebody coming face to face with them, right? How that would play out. And what if you were in those shoes and you met that person that caused such significant damage and despair, and what would you say, right? What would you do? Kind of a scenario to think through, right? Kind of a what if scenario. And I think that's kind of what we find here in the episode Stratagem.
Yeah, it is, because when Archer meets Degra, I mean, yeah, they've got different perspectives and points of view. But another aspect of it is, Archer and Degra, there's more maybe in common that they have with each other than there are differences, right? It's just this craziness, right? So there's this horrific, tragic loss of life from the weapon that Degra develops, but when Archer and Degra meet, you're just like, wow, they're just two beings, two people. They both have family. There's probably more in common that they have that is not than differences, and just the circumstance and the situation is just outrageous and outlandish and crazy, and the people making decisions are, maybe far removed from them. But I really like that, because when you have the intimacy of these people, just seeing them interact together is like, wow, they're just two people, two beings, and it's just all this craziness of the circumstance just has created this huge tragedy and loss of life. So that is a really good. I'm glad you brought that episode into discussion, because I think that's important.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite from season 3, just because, like Star Trek, and what makes it good are these ideas, these thoughts of, hey, what would I do in that person's shoes, right? How would I react? What would my response be? How would I take that type of thing? So this to me is one of those episodes, right? Where you're Archer and you meet the guy or the person who has created such a massive weapon that has caused significant amount of loss of life. What would you do? What would you do if you met Oppenheimer and you were a mother or a father and your child was killed from radiation at Hiroshima and Nagasaki or one of those places, right? It's that idea, that moral dilemma, right? If you could meet that person, what would you do? What would you say? So good episode, I thought.
Yeah.
Are there any other episodes you can think of from season 3 that stood out to you?
Season 3, I'm trying to go back in my memory banks, and I don't have one that's standing out to me.
I mean,
Right
there were a lot of good episodes, though, right? I mean, we talked about this just a little while ago. Season 3 was very Xindi centric, right? This build up to attempt to find the Xindi homeworld, attempt to find the creator in this case, the attempt to stop another Xindi attack from happening, the idea of serializing the season a little bit and having more of a running season worth of episodes versus specific individual ones, I thought was great. But if we look at season 3 and then into season 4, the 4th season is where we then get more fidelity and we bring the temporal Cold War to a close. I mean, obviously season 4, there's so much in it because it's the last season of Enterprise and they had to wrap everything up once it was officially canceled. But you have this idea of going back and flushing out the rest of the temporal Cold War story arc, which as we know, Chris, that started all the way back in the pilot episode in Broken Bow. We have several episodes in season 4 that focus on the idea of cultural changes within the Vulcan culture. We get the beginnings of establishing conflict between the humans or Earth and the Romulans, which had this show gone on, I think there's a lot of people that believe, and I'm very much one of them, that if we had gotten a 5th season of Enterprise or more, we definitely would have seen the Romulan Earth Wars, which were mentioned initially in TOS, right?
Yeah.
They were a huge deal. And prior to is it the Enterprise incident? Is that the one where the Romulans show up and then Kirk and the Romulans see their faces for the first time? I want to say, I don't remember if it was the Enterprise incident.
I don't think that was the name of it. But I know which one
yeah, maybe it wasn't that. If you're a TOS fan, correct me if I'm wrong. I probably am. But there is an episode, right, where for the first time a human and a Romulan see each other's faces, and that's where Spock they see the Romulan and look at Spock and they're like, there's some similarities here, and that's where I think Spock, I believe, reveals that Romulans and Vulcans are distant or cousins or whatever, that they are related.
Yeah.
Which was unknown at that time, obviously.
Yeah.
So we get that. The differences in appearance between TOS and Next Gen Klingons, that is explored a little bit more. We get the Mirror Universe crossover, which I know we both are big fans of. In the Mirror, Darkly Part 1 and 2 from Enterprise are great Mirror Universe episodes. And then just continually seeing more of the obstacles that humanity has to overcome before the Federation is found. And then, of course, we have the whole final episode of Enterprise, which we'll talk about in just a bit. And then, of course, going through the whole thing of Trip and T'Pol having a baby.
Yeah.
Which was interesting because, in this show, at this point in time, humans and Vulcans had never procreated. So there was belief that humans and Vulcans were unable to procreate.
Yeah, that it would be impossible.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was Vulcans going, yeah, they're too primitive for us. They couldn't possibly, whatever. But so that being said, Chris, season 4 is packed. Season 4 is arguably the best season of Enterprise. I think you could make many arguments for that, and I have a hard time arguing against that. So, what do you think? What stands out to you in season 4? What episodes really, you know, um, resonated with you?
You know, for some reason, always the World War II episodes like stand out to me when they're there. So,
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, it's for
yeah,
good reason. Yeah.
yeah. So I know that their Archer is stuck like in the past, right? So that we've got Stormfront parts 1 and 2, and that which were pretty cool. I think it was in New York. I think he was stuck in the past in New York, and you got to see some of that. So I really liked that, and those are great. I did like the ones where we've got Brent Spiner coming in and returning as Dr. Zoom. Um, so those were great to see because so those were the augments. And it was great to see that because it's a connection, a little bit of a connection with Khan, right? Because you've
Right.
augmented humans and you kind of see this. And you get more a little bit more history of that kind of that violent past that Earth has.
Yeah.
So I liked that he came back and got to do that. I think in some of those episodes, if I remember, to either Cold Station or the Augments, it to my memory, like Captain Archer has to do an escape at the end. And I think he escapes the station, is blasted out into space, and then he's rescued by the Enterprise when he does that. I'd have to go back and take that take a look at that, but that would be good to see. This this fourth season of Enterprise, I think is where we, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is where we are introduced to the Anar.
Oh, the Enar. Yeah.
Enar, yeah, which is hugely important,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
Yes. Very important. Especially for our friend Bruce Horak, who
yeah,
was
exactly.
Hemmer, right? The Enar introduced here. I do not believe the Enar are ever introduced in any Star Trek series prior to this.
Mhm.
Because all we know from other previous Legacy Treks is that there are Andorians. That's it. We don't know the subspecies of Andorians. And part of it, I think, it makes sense up to this point because the Enar are blind, and they live up in the mountainous areas on Andoria. They are peaceful, right? They don't believe in the fighting, and I also believe that the regular, from my memory, Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, the regular Andorians kind of look down upon them, right?
Yeah,
Almost like they're
yeah,
they're inferior to them, right?
yeah, they do. Um, so which is kind of um, a neat kind of a piece of history or in cultural information that you can kind of understand from the Andorians, So I thought that was great. That was great
Yeah.
that they do that. Yeah. 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 How about any other episodes that's well in the Mirror Darkly? I know you love that episode as well, right?
Yeah, great 2-part episode there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we get the Empress Hoshi Sato.
And the
I
reveal
remember,
was at the end, right? You didn't
yeah,
the reveal of the
end
Empress
of
was at
part
the
one, I think,
yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah. I specifically remember about In the Mirror Darkly. I remember there was a convention I was at, and Linda Park was there, and she was talking about how much she loved the chance to play this Empress character because now she got to be kind of in charge, got to be the boss, and she really liked playing that mirror version of herself. And I could
That's
see why.
great.
It's very, very, very different character from the normal Ensign Hoshi that we see in the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the opposite
Yeah,
almost. Yeah.
complete 180, which is very typical of the mirror universe characters, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there are very few mirror universe characters that I can think of across the Star Trek franchise where the character is so very similar to the one in the quote unquote prime universe, right? Smiley O'Brien's mirror universe character is pretty similar to himself in the prime universe. Um, Benjamin Sisko's character is definitely different, but there are some similarities there,
Yeah.
for sure. I would say in the Mirror Darkly, Trip's character has some definitely has some similarities to his normal character, albeit he's got, you know, a jacked up eye or lack thereof an eye, in certain things. But in certain regards, you see some of the Trip in the mirror version of himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely like those. But for me, I would say Borderland was an interesting one. This is where we get to dive deep more into the Orion Syndicate with the
Oh.
Orions and the Orion slave girls, because I mean that's a Star Trek thing. So
Yeah.
whether you like it or not, green painted women wearing very little clothing is was goes all the way back to TOS, right? That
Yeah.
started in TOS.
Yeah.
And interesting how Archer then goes into this criminal underworld to find a criminal to help prevent war with the Klingons. I mean, that's talk about irony, right, at its finest.
Yeah.
That's definitely different. But yeah, the episode called the Enar I thought was wonderful episode. It highlighted something we had never seen in Star Trek before. And of course, it spawns that subspecies, which we then get to see again in Strange New Worlds. And as far as we're aware, I think Hemmer becomes the first Enar to serve in Starfleet. In
I
fact, I'm
think
trying to
you're
remember.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember if they specifically said that or not. Like he was the first one. I don't remember if it's said in the episode or not. But um, there is an
Sure.
episode that I loved called Daedalus, and this episode is where we get to meet the inventor, Earth's inventor, because other species have a transporter, but Earth's inventor of the transporter. The character's name is Emery Erickson, but he's played by the famous actor Bill Cobbs, who was, I don't know if he's still alive or not, but who was a wonderful actor, and a very heartstring tugging episode because he loses his son in a transporter accident. I believe his son was, I want to say, one of the first few to use a transporter, humans, and there was some accident and his pattern never rematerialized, and he's been searching forever trying to capture that. It almost looks like a ghost. It's kind of a little bit of
Yeah.
an eerie episode. In fact, we could even say this episode could be used for a Halloween special,
It could
right?
be.
There's a
Yeah.
little bit of a creepy, you know, spookiness to it. But it's really hard, especially if you're a parent, right, to watch this episode, because at the end, when he kind of eventually gives up and is so regretful and so sorry and even apologizing, you know, to his son who he can't bring back for what happened. And so
Yeah.
that's but it's a good episode. It really is a great episode.
I'm glad you brought that one in. If it was very sad. I want to say that he was the mentor of someone on the ship. Either Trip really looked up.
Was it Archer?
Might have been Archer. Yeah, that really looked up to
Yeah,
him.
that's what I thought. I thought it was Archer, maybe it was Trip. I'd have to go back
Yeah.
and look.
Yeah, but that dynamic was really sad, right? Because it was the mentor and so Emery, the character Emery Erickson was, you know, being very, I guess, elusive, or
Mhm.
not meeting what either Archer or Trip like thought. But then
Right.
you find out why, right? You find
Yeah.
he's trying to get his son back. Um,
Yeah, and you don't know, you don't know why he's necessarily there and stuff. And I mean, you think about it, right? Here's this guy who creates this device that, if it were in today's world, would change the fabric of life. Think about that, right? There's no more. I mean, think about for you and all your travel, Chris. There is no more of
yeah,
these long flights and you're just exhausted. You hop on a transporter pad, you beam over to another country, do your work,
yeah,
come home for the day, sleep in your
yeah,
own bed, get up the next day, transfer back. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you can live anywhere in the world, you can work anywhere in the world, you can go to lunch or dinner anywhere in the world. You don't you Obviously, there, we know from Star Trek across the different series that there have been transporter accidents. And as we get into TNG and DS9 and Voyager, they're very few and far between
yeah,
because of all the different technology and the backup systems and everything they have in place to prevent those things from happening. But not here. the transporter is still very, very new. And I want to say, was it in the pilot episode where Malcolm Reed from our good friend Dominic Keating says something to the effect of, "Oh yeah, that's the transporter is only used for fruits and vegetables or whatever,"
Yeah,
like
yeah,
basically stating that humans, they don't trust it yet. It's still such a new technology, and I think if that were a new technology here on Earth today, I think we'd have kind of the same reaction, like, I ain't going in that. Like, I don't want my molecules pulled apart and scrambled and throw them back together in another location. And I mean, think about, imagine if you as a family got in the transporter to go to Disneyland and then you rematerialize, but one of your kids didn't. I mean, think, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
those, or what happens when you rematerialize? Is it really you, or is it a copy of you? Which goes back to the movie The Prestige, which we've talked about before, right?
yeah.
With the whole magic act of whether or not you're going to be the real one that appears, or it's a copy of you and the other version of you dies. And so there's a very big ethical dilemma to this idea of the transporter, and Emery Erickson is dealing with that in the loss of his son.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating that you brought all of those up, because those are all like valid questions when it comes to the transporter. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, moving cargo, moving fruits and veggies, things like that. But, where we have trillions of atoms and they're all moving, and to transport you and then put you back together in exactly the same order and moving. I mean, yeah, you know, it's crazy. It's crazy to think about how that could actually work. But then again, some of the technology we have today, it's like, how would that technology have worked, so many odd years ago, right? I mean, the technology we have today, 100 years ago, people could never have even fathomed it.
Yeah.
So what's to say that's not the case, right? But besides Daedalus, I'd say there's one more episode that kind of stands out to me, and that is the episode Terra Prime. And
Ah,
Terra Prime was a very interesting episode, because in this episode, you get this sense that not everything is all hunky dory at this period of time, right? When it comes to humans and alien species and so forth. Because here's where we see humans, an early look at humans really struggling with other alien life. So Terra Prime in this episode is an extremist terrorist organization that's incredibly xenophobic. And they really want Earth and the solar system just for humans. And we've seen
mhm,
this across
mm.
other sci-fi shows before, right? We've seen we saw this in well, sort of in Total Recall, but we see this in Babylon 5. We've seen this in Star Trek. We've seen this in so many different sci-fi series, this idea of xenophobia. And this episode brings this idea of a terrorist organization that's hell bent on, the solar system and Earth only for humans. We see a organization called the Circle in Deep Space Nine, which is a Bajor for Bajorans only
Ah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great little like 3-part series, mini series of episodes at the beginning of season 2, I think it is, of DS9. You see that across many different series. There's one of my absolute favorite episodes of TNG, probably my favorite episode of TNG, actually, an episode called Clues. I think we talked about this
Yeah,
before,
yeah.
where the crew wakes up and they've forgotten what happened, and they find out they've been out for a whole day and they only thought they were out for a matter of seconds, and it all ties back to this incredibly super xenophobic alien race that doesn't want anybody to know what their homeworld is.
Yeah.
So we see this across Star Trek pretty frequently, and science fiction, period. And so this is another example of that. In this case, humans not wanting anything to do, or this group of humans, this group of terrorists, doesn't want anything to do with alien life. Yet the majority of humans are all about exploration and, new life and everything. So very interesting episode there.
It was a good episode that they had in this season, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
it's very like it's on the nose of like how humanity can be sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
so it can be very um isolationist and closed off, where yes, you only want to be around uh your own kind, and you're ignorant about all of the other the species and beings that also coexist in the universe. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Now, I didn't put down this episode because I don't remember the
Mhm.
specific episode that it shows up in, but we also get Lieutenant Malcolm Reed, who is enlisted to help Section 31,
Yeah.
which also appears in Enterprise. I did not write that down in my notes. I don't remember which specific episode that starts, if it's in season 2, 3, 4, whichever. Um, but that's also plays into it. And I believe there's some Section 31 stuff with him in season 4, I want to say. But you begin to see that, right? And I think if these events were here in reality, um, you would have also humans who probably were xenophobic as well.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
just I would be shocked where everybody's so excited. Oh, these aliens, Vulcans show up on Earth and first contact and everything. But there's going to be people who are like, yeah, whoa, time out. I've seen ET. I've
Yeah.
seen all these. I've seen Independence Day. I know this. This can't go well for us. It always ends up in humans dying. So I could totally see something like this being the case. Maybe not necessarily terrorists, but a group of people who are anti-alien.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So
Okay.
what's up? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just gonna say we got to address the elephant in the room here because in season 4, the finale of Enterprise
Yeah.
is called "These Are the Voyages," and I'll let you take and run with this, Chris. I want to hear your thoughts because when you finished watching Enterprise again, and watch it from beginning to end. We didn't really talk a lot about the final episode. I think we had talked about, oh, we'll save it when we talk about Enterprise, and we're finally getting to it. So there is a lot of controversy about this episode. There's a lot of very passionate thoughts and a lot of emotions tied to this episode. So take us through your thoughts as this show wraps up, and we have
hmm
talked a lot of amazing things about this series. I know we both are big fans of Enterprise. What did you think about the way they ended it?
Well, this is the one where this final episode is the one where Trip perishes, right? If I have my memory correct.
Unless you
Uh,
read the extended universe Star Trek canon, we know he doesn't actually die, but
yeah.
yes, this is the one where Trip dies. Yeah,
Yeah.
spoiler.
Yeah. Spoiler for Enterprise. But
Yeah,
that death was just so abrupt and felt very nonsensical to me. It felt like when Tasha Yar died, but at the point when Tasha Yar died, right, that was season 1, and so by
yeah.
now Trip, like, we were so invested in Trip. Plus,
How
you had
about when
yeah,
Jadzia dies at the end of season 6 of
yeah,
DS9?
yeah,
Just
just like
completely pointless the way the fact she had to die. I mean,
yeah,
outside of the show, we know why, but I mean, in this case,
yeah,
why they
very
kept to kill Trip?
similar. Yeah, why?
Yeah,
And so we're invested. He has the relationship with T'Pol. They they have they have the daughter, and so now, and then he's gone. I mean, I think he didn't have to die. There were so many other ways they could have done it. But I, I mean, they had this. They're trying to mix in some good ideas in there where the Federation is starting and Archer's coming back, and he's going to give this this very great and dynamic speech to the people that were waiting for him. So that idea, like, is great. That is nice, but still, the things that happened, and Trip dying, and then bringing back in Riker and Deanna um, as part of the Enterprise crew. Yeah, just, I guess, watching them as a simulation,
yeah.
just like I
You're at a loss for
we
words.
I am at a loss of words. I mean, we weren't, you and I weren't, we weren't part of the creation of the show. So whatever pressures that they were under to kind of bring the TNG back into it and kind of mix Riker and Deanna, just felt bizarre. And
Yeah, Felt
Yeah.
awkward and out of place.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely out of place. Um, it's almost better if that episode didn't even like exist. You could have just, it could have just take away that episode completely and just have ended it with, I don't know, a normal standalone episode. People we would still be upset that it only had 4 seasons, but then you don't have this last episode that just felt like it tried to erase everything that came before, right? So, um, yeah, just you feel, um, in Star Wars where Luke Skywalker is training, and he has the vision where, Leia and Han are in trouble and he wants to go save them, and Yoda says no, don't go save them because you're gonna erase like all they have worked for. All of their suffering will have been for nothing. Feel like, to make an analogy, they tried to do this with Enterprise and then go
Wait,
in and
wait though, Chris. You
yeah.
just said the Yoda quote, but you didn't do your Yoda voice while you said it.
No, I did not do the Yoda voice.
His Yoda voice is very good, by the way.
Oh goodness, yeah. I would have to have my video off.
No, no. If you're gonna do it, you got to go all in, Chris. Anyways, yeah.
So yeah, I felt like, yeah, feel bad for them that they had to go through that, last episode like that.
Yeah, it's I would say it's definitely a stain on the show.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting. So if you haven't watched it yet, Shuttlepod Show actually did an interview with Rick Berman. By the way, he doesn't really do much of interviews anymore, as far as I know, or talk much about Star Trek on stuff. They got him to come on. This is a very much earlier on episode they did earlier on in their show. I highly recommend you go watch it. I believe there's 2 parts to it. Highly, highly, highly recommend you go watch it. So Connor and Dominic interview Rick Berman. I think they're at his house too.
Wow.
And he talked about why things happened the way it did. And he takes full responsibility for why they did it the way they did it. It was his idea to do it the way it was done, apparently. And I don't want to give too much away, but long story short, because I want you to go watch the episode or listen to the episode. It's very, very good. A lot of insight from the man who was given the keys to the Star Trek franchise when Gene Roddenberry passed away. But he also brought us things like DS9 and Voyager and things like that, Enterprise. But they had, a little insight into it. Basically, they said they had so much stuff they wanted to do with the show. They felt like they really wanted to eventually show that those moments leading up to and at the moment when the Federation is founded and this, that, and the other. And because it got canceled, they had to wrap everything up really quickly. And this is what he felt like was the best way to do it and so forth. So go watch it. I probably didn't do it any justice as to how he explains it, but it's worth a watch or listen to if you really want to hear from his mouth directly, like kind of what happened and why it went the way it did with Enterprise's finale. I think most of us would agree, and you probably would agree with me as well, Chris. This was absolutely the worst way to end a show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely the worst finale of any show of Star Trek. I could argue DS9's was worse, but only because emotionally it takes a toll on me every time I watch it.
Yeah.
Can't watch the show's finale, but not because it was a terrible episode, but yeah, this was just it was awful. And I think there was an interview that Jonathan Frakes did one time, and they'd asked him about how he felt doing that, and it was just kind of like it was going to do another job kind of thing. But I don't remember if he mentioned about whether he felt awkward or out of place doing it, and they're bringing him in to do this show. And yeah, I mean, could you imagine though if you were on the Enterprise crew and this is the way they were ending your show? I mean, we have Connor and Dominic on with us. There's part of me that kind of wants to ask this, but I don't necessarily want to, not to say, pour salt into an old wound. because maybe it is, but I'll have to talk to them offline and see if that's something they're willing to discuss, because, and I think they've discussed it before. In fact, I know they have. So it's not like it's anything new, but I don't remember specifically what they've said about their feelings on it. I'd have to go back, I guess, and watch an interview or something. But yeah, very just not the way you would have wanted them to end it by any means whatsoever. The idea where they bring into the TNG cast to try and put a pretty bow on it, but it turned out not to be a pretty bow.
Yeah. Yeah. Did not.
It didn't. So yeah, the show didn't end on a high note, ended on a pretty low note, actually. I understand what they were trying to do with that final episode, but the execution of it was very, very poor.
Yeah.
Nothing against the actors, it wasn't Marina Sirtis and Jonathan Frakes' fault. They were brought in to do a job. They were making money. As an actor, you're making money. But yeah, terrible, terrible way. But as we wrap up Enterprise, Chris, and our look at this series, what was I don't know if you mentioned this before, but did you have a favorite character from Enterprise?
I think my favorite character would be Archer. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it would be Archer. I mean, I really like Trip, really like T'Pol, really like Malcolm. Lux, like all of the characters. Hoshi, yeah. But I guess the reason why Archer is because he's put into those circumstances and those situations where he doesn't have all of the institutional experience like the Federation had, and he's having to make decisions just based off his character and what he feels is right. And I love seeing that and how it turns out, and how the consequences happen. And he's a very very relatable, such a relatable person, right? He's someone, he likes sports, he has his dog, he likes water polo. He's friendly, he's just got this passion for exploration and wanting to prove like humanity's ready. So I feel he's very, very relatable, more relatable than Picard for sure, who is incredible to me. Or Kirk. I mean, Kirk's just like this iconic being of ambition and like intelligence, right? But you've got Archer, just like I mean, he's got this incredible acumen, but he's just so like relatable, so friendly. How do you not like Archer or want to follow him or want to how do you not trust him? He's just that kind of person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And your favorite character?
Yeah, mine's Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a big fan of Trip. I think he's an incredible engineer. He's someone who could step up when needed into a leadership role. He feels very relatable, down to earth. Just that kind of like, good old country boy. There's many things about Trip to like. I really think. I think he's I like his leadership style because he cares quite a bit for his crewmates and his friends.
Mm-hmm.
I love the friendship that develops between him and Malcolm Reed. I think that's a wonderful friendship in the Star Trek universe. That really develops over the seasons and becomes pretty good, really good actually. By the time the show wraps up, so I like that. Okay, because we've now reviewed and talked about the 5 legacy Star Trek shows, right? Tossed through Enterprise. Just with legacy shows, none of the new stuff, not Discovery, not the JJ movies, not Strange New Worlds or Prodigy or any of that stuff. Just legacy Trek. Where in the order of legacy Trek does Star Trek Enterprise fall for you? I know TNG is number 1 for you. So where in those 5 series would you put Enterprise for you? And then That's part one. Part two is give your comm badge rating. 1 to 5 comm badges of Enterprise.
Oh wow. Yeah. You
As
know
a
what?
series.
Yeah, as a series. Gosh, I hadn't thought about the where does it place on the scale from all of the other series again.
Putting you
So
on the spot, Chris.
this
Let's
is on
go.
the
Let's
this
do it.
is on the spot. So um yeah, so TNG would be number one. I'm gonna say
There's
it's
there,
either
there's no wrong answer here. I
yeah,
promise. I'm not gonna try to sway you one way or the other.
yeah. Um so it's either gonna be number two or number three. And I'm trying to figure out if it comes in two or three because it's TNG is number one, and then so top three is TNG, DS9, and then Enterprise for me. So I'm trying to figure out where does Enterprise fit on the two or three right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might have it as number two right now, but it might
Interesting. Yes.
yes. Yeah, so it's right. I'd say it's right up there. Right in the
Okay.
top three at least. It might
Yeah.
flex with DS9 or Enterprise in two and three, depending on which day of the week I'm in, which one which one I'm
Which
gonna
day
say.
ending and why?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay.
yeah,
So,
because
all right,
and you.
we'll go with that. If you're
Yeah.
what? Okay, so
Oh yeah.
today is Saturday. What day of the week? Saturday. Where's Enterprise on a Saturday?
Oh, probably number two on
Number
a
two. Okay,
Saturday.
especially because
Yeah.
we're talking about it. Okay,
Yeah,
got
yeah.
it. Okay, so Enterprise is number two. What kind of ratings are you giving it?
I was gonna give it a oh god. Well, let's see if I give it a this is great because depending on the rating, um that should like correlate with like where it comes in the top five, right? So
Well, don't worry about the top 5. Just worry about
yeah.
how you're rating the show.
I would say I don't count the last episode. So I'm gonna take that last episode away because I don't
Okay.
think it's fair to keep in. So I'd say it's like a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
as the rating. So I think I don't think it's fair to have that last episode in for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for me,
Yes.
I would say it's pretty easy for me. I know the order of this. For me, it's DS9, it's TNG, and then it's Enterprise.
Yeah.
In those three. And then I would say like Voyager and TOS. And that's just because TOS is number 5 on the Legacy doesn't mean I don't like it. It's just because of, yeah, I mean, I can't put it number 1, obviously, because that's the throne upon which DS9 sits on. Albeit there's another throne not too far behind it that has TNG on it as well, because for different reasons. Although we do agree, Picard is our captain. I mean, I grew up on Picard. He was my captain growing up. There was a little bit of Kirk in there, but mostly it was Picard. I said this before. I didn't really watch a ton of DS9 growing up. I watched some here and there, but because of the way it was designed, you couldn't. It was harder to just pick up random episodes and watch them, like it would be TNG or TOS. But Enterprise, definitely for me, number 3 in the Legacy Trek. I wish it had gotten more seasons. I think we all do. We all think that, right? I think it's crazy that Enterprise gets 4 and Discovery is going to get 5, but that's besides the point. Although that'll be its final season, I guess, is season 5. But all right. So for me, rating, it's interesting you said 4.5, because that's exactly what I have. What I would.
Oh, see, yeah.
Great minds think alike. Now, here's why, though. Now, I give it 4. I would have given it 5 had it not been for 2 factors. Number 1, the final episode. I have to knock it down for that, because it's a terrible way to end a show. The other part that knocks it down the half. So these 2 factors, the reason why I got knocked down to half a comm badge, is because it only got 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be the what if, right? Like, what would have happened if Enterprise had gotten another season or had gotten a full 7 seasons like its predecessors, minus Toss. There was so much that could have been done. And with 7 seasons, you could have really slowly worked your way towards the founding of the Federation and done it properly, obviously. There's so many wonderful things they could have worked in. They could have that final episode or final episodes could have been the founding of the Federation, the signing of the charters, all that stuff. There could have been, Captain Jonathan Archer visiting a high school that was named after him to give a speech to inspire the students there. The NX-01 Enterprise being refitted with Doug Drexler's design.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many wonderful things that could have been done. The Romulan Earth Wars, more spats with the Klingons. There's so many things. There's so many treaties and charters and things that could have been flushed out during those last few seasons that were mentioned in TOS as stuff that had been established prior to that. You could have had the establishment of the Romulan neutral zone. There's so many wonderful things. I mean, just the Romulan Earth Wars alone could have gone 1 to 2 seasons minimum. Yeah. Probably, I think 1 season wouldn't have been enough time. Probably had to have had 2 seasons. And if you think about like the episode of Strange New Worlds, we both really liked the one with a lot of Dr. Mbenga and Nurse Chapel with all the Klingon War. And we spent a lot of time on that, right? And diving deep into that. So if you haven't seen it or listened to it, go listen to it or watch it, because we dove really deep on that and talked about PTSD and war and all this type of stuff. And it was an amazing time getting a chance to really dive deep into some of those really complex and sometimes dark issues and emotions. But they could have done, I think, some of that in Enterprise had it gone on longer, right? This idea of, especially because when it happened, right? So season 4 of Enterprise was what, like 2004, I think, is when it ended.
Yeah.
So that would have been right after, like, the invasion of Iraq was going on. It would have been 3 years post 9/11 for those of us here in the States. There was been a lot of things that they could have taken current events and things that were going on in the real world and dealt with those issues, dealt with those emotions, those feelings, those beliefs, and brought it into Enterprise and used the Romulan Earth War as a catalyst to capture the things that were going on in the Middle East at the time. I mean, that would have been amazing. So that's why I have to knock it down and get off that soapbox for a little bit, knock it down to 4.5. I think, to me, if those things would have been different, it would have been a home run show. I mean, even still, 4.5 stars, to me, it was still an incredible show with so many wonderful things. Yeah, there were some forgettable episodes, sure, but every series has those. But this show was really fantastic. And they brought in a lot of wonderful new stuff, whether it was, more of the Andorians and earlier Vulcans, the Xindi, the Suliban, the Temporal Cold War, which some argue the Temporal Cold War is the reason why New Trek is in this kind of like, alternate timeline, like Doug had mentioned, which kind of makes sense. Actually, you could tie it back. So some of my thoughts. What about some final thoughts from you, Chris, on the series as a whole?
Yeah, I thought they could have the Andorians and the Orions. Those are 2 like prime kind of species that, if we had more seasons, like we could have explored them even more, and it would have been great. Would have been great to see. But we didn't get to see that, so we can only kind of imagine like how that would have gone. We could have also seen the Gorn. I have a feeling that if Enterprise had kept going, they would have brought in the Gorn. I mean, I know we get the Gorn in Strange New Worlds, but
but that's in the future from Enterprise,
right? Yeah.
So, and in Strange New Worlds, there's already this establishment of the Gorn and this bully, this menacing, species that has been plaguing the Federation for a while. So that's actually really awesome, Chris. I didn't even think about that. That would have been wonderful to see.
Yeah, that would have been really, really cool.
Like first contact with the Gorn.
Yeah.
Right? Because Kirk's first contact with the Gorn, I don't think the first time, well, we know now Strange New Worlds is not the first time, right? So first contact with the Gorn and like skirmishes and all that stuff. That could have been like a little mini story arc, or even carried over a couple of seasons.
Yeah. I mean, we could have seen the first kind of actual starships, real starships, not the NX, not an NX version, but
Yeah.
the real starships start entering the fleet. It would have been there's a lot of really like interesting things they could have done. I mean, the the Federation, yes, that's interesting, but also after the Federation is founded, like let's say you have the Federation founded in a certain series, or excuse me, in a certain season. If you continued, then you could have had those initial ideas of, hey, what does a Starfleet Academy look like? What does the beginnings of a Starfleet look like, right? And have at least those initial concepts and those initial ideas kind of explored in Enterprise. I'm sure they probably would have gone there, and it would have been like that, would have been great to kind of flesh out. Would have been really cool.
Especially if Manny Koto had stayed on as a showrunner moving forward, right? When we saw what we got in season 4, which was just so packed full of some absolutely wonderful episodes. Obviously, the finale wasn't, but there was some great stuff in season 4. I mean, I have a hard time, besides the finale, I have a hard time naming a bad episode in season 4.
Yeah, I would not be able to add like a bad episode. I felt I wish the resolution with T'Pol's and Trip's daughter was different. And I don't know if they had to,
because she passes away, right? The daughter passes away.
Daughter passes away, and I don't know if they knew that the season was canceled at that point. When they kind of resolved that circumstance like that, maybe they did. I feel that if it wasn't being canceled, they could have done a much better resolution to the daughter.
100%.
Yeah.
100% on that one. I think that, that was a tragic, between that and then Trip dying supposedly. I mean, imagine what T'Pol would have been going through. Holy cow. Talk about a character who's not supposed to have emotions, yet we know Vulcans have emotions. They're just suppressed. Imagine trying to suppress your emotions with all that going on. That just would have been insane. But we do know, though, we are getting we're supposed to be getting a Starfleet Academy series, right? We know that was teased a while back. So we'll see if that ever comes to fruition. With the strike being over, things can start kind of spinning back up and getting, at some point down the road. We know we're getting a season 3 of Strange New World, so that's coming. A lot on the horizon, but this show was not long enough. It's really, really good, and we can't wait to talk to Connor and Dominic at some point in the near future here on the Random Redshirt podcast to have them share their careers with us and their time on Enterprise. We'll do our best to come up with some really good questions that's maybe not ones they've ever been asked before. Especially when it comes to Star Trek, because they've been to so many conventions. They've been asked every question 50,000 times over. So maybe we can come up with some creative questions that are they're different and unique that maybe they haven't heard before, which would be wonderful.
Yeah, it'd be most excellent.
Yeah. So, well, Chris, this wraps up not only our look at Enterprise, but also season 5 of our podcast. So we're going to be moving into season 6 next. And I know we have some planning to do and some mapping out of what season 6 looks like, but I do know we're going to have some incredible guests coming up in the near future. We cannot wait to announce that and share those with you. We look forward to having those folks on with us and sharing their careers and their lives. And just like we always do here on the Random Redshirt podcast, which is, asking those questions and learning more about our guests and not just talking about whatever it is they're most well known for, but really learning a lot about them. And I know, Chris, every time we've had a guest on, we always walk away going, oh, that was really awesome. It was so much fun to learn about them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely is. See what they're interested in. A lot of them like Shakespeare, seems.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's good.
I mean, it's just not a bad thing to like, right? I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Anyway, so all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much as always for watching and listening all over the globe. and
The
the
interwebs. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So we very much do appreciate that. Again, be sure to go on to Facebook and Instagram and check us out there. You can like and follow us. We much appreciate that. And also, it'll help you stay in the know of our next announcements coming soon. Whether it's celebrity guest announcements, episode announcements, or something funny we want to share with you. That's the best way to keep in touch with us. Of course, you can also always email us, the Random Redshirt Podcast at gmail.com. And we look forward to hearing from you soon. So thank you if you have been watching or listening to us from the very beginning in season 1 all the way till season 5. And we hope to bring you more great content soon going into season 6. With that being said, take care, everybody. And we'll catch you next time on season 6 of the Random Redshirt Podcast coming soon. Take care, everybody.